Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm your host and TEFL teacher, and today we're diving into something we can all relate to: customer service. We've all had those experiences, the amazing ones and, the not so amazing ones. Learning how to talk about them is one of the best ways to make your English sound more authentic. So today we are going to supercharge your emotional vocabulary.
I mean, come on, we've all been there, right? You're stuck on hold forever, or you feel totally invisible to the staff. It's more than just a little annoying, it can be incredibly frustrating. And the key to really expressing that feeling in English is having just the right words.
So, here's what we're going to do in this explainer. First, we'll take a quick trip back in time to see where this whole idea of good service even came from. Then, we're going to dive into 7 absolutely essential English words that perfectly describe those moments when it all goes wrong. And we'll use some real-life stories to see exactly how they work.
Okay, let's get into it. You might actually be surprised to hear that the whole idea of the customer being the most important person in a business, well, it's actually a pretty new thing. For most of history, buying something was a much, much riskier game. Back then, the main principle was a Latin phrase, caveat emptor, and what that means is let the buyer beware. Basically, all the risk was on you, the customer. If you bought something that was broken or if a seller tricked you, well, that was your problem. It was pretty common, and there wasn't much you could do about it.
But then, around the turn of the 20th century, a few trailblazing business owners had a totally revolutionary idea. They decided to flip that old rule completely on its head and put the customer right at the very heart of everything they did.
And check out how this idea caught on. In 1905, we see the phrase, "the customer is always right," show up in print. A few years later, the famous hotel owner Cesar Ritz was saying it in French. But here's the crazy part. In 1909, when Harry Selfridge brought this idea to his big news store in London, the newspapers actually made fun of him. They thought putting the customer first was a totally absurd idea. And this famous motto, "give the lady what she wants," just perfectly sums up that massive change in attitude. It was a complete shift away from buyer beware and toward building trust and making sure customers felt valued. And honestly, that's something we pretty much expect today. So that's the history lesson. It explains why our expectations are so high now. But what about the feelings, right? What happens when things don't go our way? Bad service is an emotional roller coaster. So let's start building our vocabulary with 3 real stories where customer service went completely off the rails. Okay, our first story is about a guy named George. I want you to picture this. He gets to his hotel in Jakarta after a 16-hour journey. He is wiped out. He goes to the front desk, there's nobody there, but he can see the staff in a back room totally glued to a football game on TV. George waits, and they just keep ignoring him. He finally has to shout just to get their attention. Now, this brings us to our first word, infuriated. When you are infuriated, you are way beyond just angry. You are extremely, intensely furious. The way he was treated left him feeling completely infuriated. It's a powerful, boiling kind of anger. And here's where it gets even more interesting, which brings us to our next word, mortified. To be mortified is to feel incredibly embarrassed or ashamed. See, George gets so infuriated that he starts shouting. And in many Asian cultures, raising your voice like that in public is a huge social no-no. So his outburst clearly mortified the staff. They were just deeply ashamed by the scene he was causing. Okay, let's move on to story number 2. This is Gemma. She bought a new TV and a laptop from the same company. But of course, almost as soon as the 1-year warranty ran out, both of them started having weird problems. Her TV, for example, would just turn itself off for no reason. This is a perfect example of something that is irritating. Our next word, irritating, describes something that's annoying in that persistent, low-level way. It's not a huge disaster, but it's that constant nagging problem that slowly drives you mad. You know, like a fly buzzing around your head. That's irritating. So when Gemma emailed the company for help, the answer she got was just this generic, copy-pasted email that didn't help at all. And this brings us to another fantastic word, impersonal. An impersonal experience is one that feels cold and automated, like there's no real human being there. That email made her feel totally unimportant, like she was just another number. All right, our final story is about a man named Jonathan. He's at the airport trying to check in for a flight. It should be easy, but it turns into a total nightmare because of one tiny, tiny little error on his ticket. The check-in agent sees his ticket says John, but his passport says Jonathan.
Instead of being helpful, the first thing she does is glare at him. This verb, to glare, is so powerful. It's not just a look, it's a silent, angry, hostile stare. It's that look that tells you immediately, we have a problem here.
That one single glare instantly made Jonathan feel uneasy. To feel uneasy is to feel worried and anxious, to get that sinking feeling in your stomach. He said he suddenly felt like he was being treated like a criminal. It's that feeling you get when you just know a situation is about to get really difficult.
And this takes us to our final word. After a huge argument, the airline made him buy a brand new, expensive ticket. Jonathan felt like they were just using a tiny mistake to get more money out of him, and this made him feel resentful. To be resentful is to feel that deep, bitter anger that comes from being treated unfairly. It's an anger that really sticks with you.
Wow, so these 3 stories really show the huge gap that can exist between that old slogan, the customer is always right, and the reality we live in today. So what does good customer service even mean in the 21st century?
Well, the truth is, that old slogan isn't a simple rule. I mean, let's be real. Sometimes the customer is definitely wrong. The true art of modern customer service is finding the right balance, treating everyone with respect while also being fair to the employees and the business. So today, great service really comes down to 4 things. It's about being personal, so you don't get that cold, robotic feeling that Gemma did. It's about being empathetic and actually understanding the customer's frustration. It's about being knowledgeable so you can actually fix the problem. And maybe most importantly, it's about treating everyone with dignity so you avoid giving them that awful glare that Jonathan got. And this all leaves us with a really fascinating question. In our digital world, with the power of online reviews and social media, who really has the power now? Has the customer become more powerful than ever before? We have covered so much today, from history to all of these amazing, powerful words. Let's do a super quick review. We learned glare, infuriated, impersonal, irritating, mortified, resentful, and uneasy.
Okay, now it's your turn. The best way to make new vocabulary stick is to use it. So I want you to try. Write your own sentence using one of our new words down in the comments. I would love to see them. If you found this lesson helpful, please give it a like, share it with a friend who is also learning English, and of course, subscribe for more. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.